Hello, my name is Tom Fee, and welcome to the Virginia Bakery Remembered Baking Series. This is the yellow dough segment. So get out your cookbook, turn to page 109, yellow dough. Now, as with almost all good yeast doughs, this yellow dough starts with what we call a sponge. It actually allows the yeast to bloom and ferment and give flavor to the dough. So this is very simple. You put your warm water in, 2 cups. You put your 3 packs of yeast in. And now we're going to let that rest for about 5 minutes. Okay, now that the yeast has bloomed, you can either mix this by hand, which I think is the easiest way to do it, or you can put it in your machine and use the dough hook. So we're going to add our 3 cups of flour and simply stir it together. Most baking is not rocket science, believe it or not. Just stir until it's well combined. Scrape down the sides of the bowl. And just cover it with a cloth. Put it in a warm place, and it should take about 45 minutes to an hour to proof. And poof, there it is. See how the dough is just starting to fall back in on itself? That's exactly where you want to be with a sponge. Poofing. That's what some of the new bakers used to call it. However, the correct term is proofing. And what's going on here is a biological reaction of the yeast. Yeast actually exists in a wild state. However, we mostly buy it in jars like this. I prefer to use the fresh cake yeast if you can find it. However, it's getting increasingly hard to find. If you have a local baker, you might be able to get it through him. Yeast actually, like I said, exists in the air. If I were just to leave this flour and water mixture here by itself, uncovered, yeast would eventually settle into it. And if I kept turning it in, it would start to ferment, just like it has here, which is where the natural sourdough starters come from. Alright, now a note about flour. You'll notice in the recipe that we have 6 cups of all-purpose flour and 3 cups of winter flour. Winter flour is a softer, less gluten flour. You can find it in some grocery stores under the label pastry flour. Your local baker will definitely have it. If you do not have winter flour, you can make a reasonable substitute by using 1 part of cake flour, which is available in almost every grocery store, to 3 parts of all-purpose flour. Okay, let's make the yellow dough. We have our sponge here, to which we're going to add our 1 1/4 cup of sugar, 4 teaspoons salt, the 1 cup of shortening, and the 1 stick of butter, 8 ounces of butter, our liquid, which is 1 cup of milk. I prefer to use whole milk, which is what we did at the bakery, and 1 cup of water. Oh, and I almost forgot the egg yolks. Alright, you've got everything in there now but the flour, to which we're slowly going to add it. We're not going to add this all at one time. If you did, you'd probably wind up with 3 cups of flour on the floor once you started your machine. So start with about 3, maybe 4 cups. Load it into your machine. Now this is a pretty big mix. It's one of the largest mix you'll ever have to make, so if you have a Cuisinart, KitchenAid, I'm sorry. If you have a KitchenAid, it makes it a lot easier. Oh, make sure your bowl's in correctly. Lift your arm. Now, turn your mixer on slowly. You might even want to jostle it until you start getting that flour worked in. There we go. Now let this mix on slow until you have a homogeneous mixture here. This will take about 5 minutes altogether by the time you get all the flour in there and you get the dough worked up. Okay, I'm turning the speed up just a tad and start adding more flour. Okay, this is the last of the flour. Now we're going to let this dough mix for a good 3 or 4 minutes, just to come together real good. All the doughs come together here. It's nice and smooth, sticky, just like it should be. I took it out of our machine. This is the messy part, by the way. Alright, sprinkle a little bit of flour on your pan. Keep the dough from sticking as you pour it out. Actually, a lot of flour. Okay, this little tool comes in very handy. It's a plastic dough scraper. Use it for everything from scraping down dough to spreading fillings to scraping your bench off when you're done. Also makes a great ice scraper for your car in the wintertime. Alright, plop your dough out here. Your pan. See how easy it comes out with the scraper? That's just about where you want it. It's nice, it's soft. It's not like a bread dough. It's not real stiff. Yellow dough is one of the mother doughs that we used in the bakery. And it's called mother dough because of its use in so many other applications. From this yellow dough, we can make coffee cakes, we can make sweet rolls, we can make donuts, and we can always make the world-famous schnecken, which is how this dough became. Alright, pat your dough out. You might want to put a little flour on top. You don't need to. And we're going to cover it up and put it in the refrigerator. Speaking of coffee cakes were one of the first jobs that a new baker had on the bench. Basically because it didn't require any rolling, it didn't really require any skill. All you had to do was use your hands. So that might be the next series that you want to check out the butter cake recipe. Alright, now put your yellow dough in the refrigerator, let it chill for a little bit. It's easier to handle. What I usually do now is cut this into 12-ounce portions, which is what the coffee cakes will weigh, and I put them in my freezer. This dough will freeze well for well over a month.